Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm back after taking a break last week from doing a live show, and we're going to do a little different kind of a show than I've been doing, and we're just setting our levels here, and I have another slideshow for you. And as always, I'd like to thank Paula Gloria Barton for teching for me and making our shows so professional with what equipment we do have as we limp along in the post-analog age. And before coming on air, we had a bunch of conversations going on, and interestingly enough, we had put on one of my old previous shows with Frank Craven, and it paused in the middle of the show, and so we had to fiddle around with the computer to restart the show, and subsequently we were restarting the show as time was running out and running up to the live broadcast, and it ended on the oldest chant known to the Wolf Clan of the Seneca. And it's a very, very, very beautiful chant called the Gathering of Oneness. So I kind of think that's pretty neat. We were talking about dreams, and I had a dream 2 nights ago at where I found myself kind of in a scenario of being in a post apocalyptic world, sort of like industrial Poughkeepsie or Kingston even, and all of the people that were inhabiting this place were doing all of the kinds of things that working people do, whether it's fixing cars or working on buildings, workers. There were workers everywhere. Anyway, and I found myself in this building that had no way out. And I'd go down this particular hallway, and it was structured to look like it was an exit, but it would just come to a wall. And I realized that I was in a kind of a tesseract. And if you don't know what that is, there's a C.S. Lewis story that has a tesseract in it that sort of involves these children getting stuck in this time travel, time loop structure. And so I realized that, I'm in hell. And these are all the lost souls who have, forgotten who they are and why they are and what they're really doing. So they're doing all of the tasks of slavery, fixing old cars and repairing buildings and stuff over and over and over again without questioning their reality. And in the end of the dream, I started roaring, and it made a vibration that shook the whole structure or the reality of that paradigm, and it kind of bothered the devil character, the Satan character, who was about 12 feet tall and lanky, and he was wearing these, kind of poofy, flowery clothes, which I thought was funny. And so he, as big and powerful and tall and everything as this pointy-eared character was, he was also kind of, laughable. And I just roared at him and made him go away. And in the end of the dream, I'm standing in this sort of open area of this industrial space with up in the catwalks all around and on the ground, where it was the lost souls, like this audience, you could say. And I was yelling at them to use their minds, and that's when I woke up. And what I was left with was this, feeling that vibration or sound is part of what constructs our reality. And I think part of my objection to the 5G rollout that we've been talking about, various TV producers here and abroad, are bringing to the attention of the public that our elected officials are instrumental in either prohibiting or providing 5G. And, you know, this degree of frequency manipulation, you could call it a frequency fence or a psychic fence. And the reason I'm going from 5G rollout to, you know, frequency fence or psychic fence or even spiritual fence is because, going back to that dream, you know, reality is, matter even is created through vibration. And a real simple explanation for why I would use that thought is a very famous video clip, and there's been many of them, but there was this opera singer, this woman, who could sing a pitch, and then a crystal glass, you know, like a champagne glass or wine glass, a crystal wine glass, would shatter because she would duplicate the resonant frequency of that glass. And by singing that pitch, the glass vibrated itself into little tiny pieces. And if we were to look at the introduction of many bandwidths of Wi-Fi frequencies, which are known to be toxic. I mean, this is not conspiracy stuff. This is, you know, real live medical research has been done that children are specifically vulnerable to these very high frequency Wi-Fi broadcasts that are being employed in a lot of schools now, and every level of school, because this technology is being introduced to our culture at large, and what happens is that these microwave energies excite the molecules in our nervous systems and in our brains, and creates heat, just like your microwave oven. And this is not make-believe. I'm not just making stuff up here. This is real. This is real, folks. And it's frequency-based. It's a sound. It's a sound that we cannot hear, so it's an invisible sound, so to speak, but it is a sound. Radio waves are frequencies, oscillations, sounds that are broadcast that are outside of our hearing. Much like our visual apparatus, our eyes and our retinas and our brains can only accept and process a bandwidth of light, what's called visible light. It's only visible to us, and that's why we call it visible light. But there are insects who see ultraviolet. There are other creatures who see a wider bandwidth of light that go into the higher ranges of frequency. And it is there that light and sound commingle. These are related phenomenon. And so what I want to do is I'm going to show you a slideshow tonight, and we're going to go through these slides, and I'm going to talk about them a little bit. And what's really nifty about this is that what's really nifty about this is that they're all local. This is all digital photography. My camera was stolen. My 1970s era Konica camera that had a 400 power zoom lens with a doubler on it that was giving me fabulous photographs of stuff up in the sky but it also was a great portrait and a great nature camera. I mean, I really miss that camera, but I was gifted this little digital camera, that Sony camera. It really does a respectable job. And in the past couple of years, I've been capturing images. Some of these images are 5 years old already, which is starting to scare me how fast time is going by. Oh, look at that. We're dissolving right into the first slide. And so these are our neighbors, okay? This is the frequency that we live with, that we take for granted. And for those of you who are stuck at home, if you're sick or you're elderly or whatever, you know, I made a decision a couple weeks ago. I wanted to do this show and not make it too political, but, you know, everything is political. I mean, everything is. And now I don't know all the names of the species of these, but these are all locally growing plants, fungi, and animals that I have been photographing. And look at this lovely yellow mushroom family, fungus family. You know, they're a family. There's little ones, and then there's big ones, and they're all kind of nestled together. And you know, in my imagination, and maybe I really feel it, it looks very loving. And the shapes, can you go back to that first one again? You know, the shape, this is called the fruiting body. And that this creature, fungi are really interesting things. They live in the ground, and they come out of the ground, and they go crawl over plants, and they act in a intelligently controlled manner, and then they find a place where they can set up shop and then fruit and then make spores, which is kind of like seeds. But this is the fruiting body, and you know, it does kind of look like, resembles a little bit, an animal anatomic part of a man. And so there is a correspondence or a repetition of patterns in nature. And so we're looking at a reproductive organ of a fungi, and you know, as we as animals, you know, share this kind of interesting shape. Now, if we go to the next one, this one. Now, this one is the same species, but it has had another day or two to continue its blossoming. You see, because I was tracking this, I was following it. I said, oh my gosh, the colors of this were just so stunning to me. It was just so beautiful. Look at that yellowish, orangish yellow against the green, that little green leaf there. I mean, these are called color harmonies, or the gray of the bark behind it. You know, I'm always fascinated how these natural color combinations are so pleasing to the eye, at least to my eye. You know, now here, to me, this has, the shape has now gone towards a more feminine shape as a reproductive organ of a fruiting body of this particular species of mushroom. And I'm sure there are people out there that know what it is, but I don't. And nature replicates a lot of form and function. And what's interesting is these are the same mushrooms at different stages of their life, showing two different kinds of characters. Male, that's a male characteristic, and that's a female kind of a characteristic. Look at those gills and those openings in the depth of it. And what's interesting about that is, we human beings, we all start out female. When we're in utero, when we are zygotes, and when we're developing into a fetus, sex is not determined until, for unknown reasons, and that's the fabulous part about this, for unknown reasons, an enzyme gets emitted that turns a X chromosome into a Y chromosome or something like that, and the male half of the species is then developed. But we all start out feminine. We all start out female, and that's why we share certain parts, like, men have, vestigial breasts of sorts. Anyway, so that's kind of an interesting parallel in how.
But the mushroom does an opposite.
How do you mean?
It starts off male.
Well, that's the yin and the yang of it all. There's nature abhors a vacuum, and it takes advantage of every opportunity to succeed. So, as a strategy of survival, it's going to mix it up. And it starts out. This creature starts out, and I call them a creature because they are classified as somewhere between plant and animal. So I call it a creature. It starts out as a slime. Well, we don't know that it starts out actually as a spore, and that spore is many times microscopic, and floats in the air, and you breathe it up your nose, and it gets everywhere. But it only becomes a slime when it settles upon a condition where it can then go to the next stage of growth. All right, let's move on to another one. And that's what happens when that's our main street in Woodstock, right here. And this is what people do. We have this beautiful, fabulous blue sky, but then there's pavement and cars and buildings, and the snow isn't pristine and beautiful. It's kind of like slushy and nasty and full of ice melt and other products and dirt from being scraped along by the snowplows. And this is, I included this picture to show what we do to our environment. And it's pretty hard for a mushroom to grow on that asphalt. And that asphalt also represents the pathway of motor vehicles and trucks and cars, and a lot of animals die because we drive too fast for them, for us to either stop or for them to get out of the way. So that asphalt made out of crushed stone and the blood of the earth, the oil, petroleum. That's what it is, folks. Asphalt is just petroleum oil, and crushed rock, spread all over the place. And our sidewalks are frequently made with concrete, which is another earth material that we restructure. And then we have the power lines. So getting to those power lines, they can all be used as transmission devices, by the way, for the frequencies that I'm talking about in the 5G rollout. And on each of those telegraph poles, telephone poles, or light poles can be installed an emitter. They don't need to use big towers. They can just be putting this 5G rollout is going to be putting emitters on every telephone pole across America as one of the options on the table here, just so you know. So when you see strange workers putting up new devices, that could be what it is. Anyway, moving on. So here's where people haven't been putting roads out. That's up on the mountain where I had been living for 6-7 years. And I just like to show you how blue the sky is. And again, look at the color harmonies. This is something that, whatever made the, earth and sky that we're on or in really knows what it's doing. I mean, everything has a form and a function and a purpose. And, the trees, the deciduous trees in the foreground look like nerves to me that are in our bodies. So I think that trees might have like a antennae with nerves into the space in the ethers. So the trees are intelligent. And that's how could a block of wood be intelligent? Well, they live a long time, and just because it's a tree doesn't necessarily mean we understand what tree reality is and how they feel. All right, now that big white lump is about 20 feet high. That's my teepee. That's my tent. that I was living in. And, I love this photo because the snow puts everything, it's a blanket. It puts everything to sleep. It snuggles everything in. And it's so important to have the snow because it puts nitrogen in the soil, and it also insulates and it protects. Even though it's cold, it keeps you warm. So that's kind of a nifty thing. And here's another winter scene in our little, that's a little tiny utility cabin up there on the mountain. And I always like these pleasing pictures because of the colors that the sun coming at a different angle now is making the greens more yellow, and against the white snow, and then the shadows turn blue. If you see the shadows are blue, and there's a gnarly old apple tree. Really, that tree is hundreds of years old. It still makes apples, and good old. Yep, Teepee Bob says, the legend has it, that up there on the farm up there at the top of the mountain was trees were planted. The apple trees were an orchard of Johnny Appleseeds. And there is actually down in Route 212 near Sunfrost a big, large, round rock that kind of looks like an apple with a plaque dedicated to Johnny Appleseeds having been in Woodstock for a time. So here we have woodcocks, and the young lady that was on my show some months back, Ann Bloomfield, was very excited when I first posted this picture on Facebook. She goes, "Where'd you get that?" And I said, "Outside my window, up at the cabin." She goes, "That's really rare for them to come out, close to people." And I'm not exactly close to people up there myself, so maybe I'm more accepted by the animal and kingdom. So here we have a pair, and they're doing their little ritual. I don't know if it's a mating dance or if they're just having fun. But these lovely, really, really kind of beautiful creatures. They're kind of like wild chickens in a way. And they have fantails like a turkey, but they're small, came out and danced around in the front yard, and I was there to take a picture of it. And these are, like I said, this show is kind of dedicated to the idea that this is the neighbors that we have, folks. These are our neighbors, these creatures. And let's go on to the next one. Now here we have a real impressive fellow. This is a barred owl. And this barred owl started greeting my truck going up the mountain over the years. And when I'd come home from work after about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night from the theater, this owl would be in one tree on my right, and then he would fly across in front of my windshield and land in another tree, and he would make eye contact with me. And followed me all the way up 2 miles up to the camp. And you see him eating on my bird feeder station, which was just a restaurant rack I have out on my deck. And he's just eating some suet that I put out. It's actually some roadkill deer fat, and or it was fat from the meat market. But the thing is that, again, when I posted this picture, Anne got real excited. She says, "This is a rare thing." She didn't think anybody had ever taken a photograph of a barred owl eating carrion, which is basically, dead meat. They eat living mice. And I think that, when you're hungry, you're going to eat what's available. So moving right along. And this is down at the bottom of the mountain in the spring, early summer. And there's the cubs and Mama Bear. And they were too secretive of me. I couldn't get close enough to get a really clean shot of them. So I have a couple of shots of these fellows, and they are so loving to their little family, and the little bears, the cubs, they've often been up at in my apple tree, and I could hear them talking to each other, and they sound like Martians. They go, that's how they sound. They kind of, and what was really interesting is they're very good climbers. So if you're thinking of getting away from a bear that's chasing you, don't climb a tree. They will be right up after you. And anyway, so Mama Bear was collecting the apples that the baby bears were scraping down off the very top limbs of the tree. And they work together, you see. The mama bear teaches the baby bears, and then they all work together. And it's a bigger one. I don't know if that's a male or a female, but that one's a sizable bear. I couldn't tell you. It was a bit far off, but that was, when you take these nature photographs and you're limited by the camera you have. I have to get pretty close with this digital camera to get a good shot. Bears are skittish. They're not going to let you get close to them. And so that's one of our little neighbors there. And here is a rabbit. And this rabbit was quite tolerant of me. I mean, I got pretty close. And, you can see the glint in his eye. And they know, you see, the really interesting experience I had up there is these creature beings, they all know that I'm not going to harm them. I put food out for them, for the birds specifically, but these creatures, they're safe. They're safe in my little world, and they reveal themselves over time. I have had encounters with bobcat, wolf, and I wish I had a camera on me at the time. I have seen so many creatures in a few short years. In all my years in the Adirondacks, this area right here around Woodstock is so incredibly abundant with such a wide variety of animals that it really needs to be appreciated. So let's keep moving on with the bunny rabbit here because I got a bunch of them. Like I said, look at him. I mean, I'm just snapping away and, have really good time. I think it's a jackrabbit. Look at those ears and the posture of him. And just, I'm going to eat. So, really relaxed. Okay, yeah, let's move on to the fungi. Now here's another variety of mushroom, and I didn't quite get the focus on this, but it's still a nice photograph of how they kind of congregate, and the fruiting body is very much like a family. There's big ones and little ones, and I think the next one, if we go on to the next one, there you go. That's a nice focus, and that's. I think that's like, some very toxic looking thing because it's got this rumply cap to it. I don't know if those are, death angels or what, but they're still incredibly beautiful because of the purity of the white. I mean, we go from this orangey yellow to one variety, and now this variety is the purest white. It's just gorgeous stuff. And I always love how, look at the browns and the browns and grays of the matter and rock and detritus around these fungi harmonize. To me, these, as an oil painter, and I just love these color combinations, that you just can't get with pigment sometimes. You can come close. Really good painters, that's what makes them very good painters, is they come close, but nothing really duplicates what nature provides for us. That's my opinion. And we'll keep going. There's another shot of the little mushroom family on a log. And you can see on the bottom of that, you can see these, looks like turkey tail mushrooms. A different variety and a very hard and woody kind at the very bottom of the frame on the same log as these white mushrooms. So there's a community. They're very different. They do different things, but they all get along. And that's a real good lesson for us human folk, don't you think? We're all. What's that? You got a thought there?
Turkey tail is supposed to be good for breast cancer.
Uh-huh.
That's why when you were talking earlier about what death angels they do,
Yeah.
cancer is always white. So look at the difference between the two colors.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, if you're looking at the law of signatures, that something looks like what it heals.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's beautiful.
Well, everything has its function, form and function. That's another shot that nice focus on that, and you can really see the side of the log. And yeah, the turkey tails are there, still there. They're down at the bottom. Yeah.
I could see these in a gallery in Big Sur, California.
Yeah.
These photographs are beautiful, George.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
Another nice
yeah.
close up there. I'm zooming in while I'm probably 8 inches away from this cluster of mushrooms. And similarly to the high altitude pictures that I was taking, you have to hold your hand real steady. I'm not using a tripod or anything. I am just out, walking along in the woods or around my house or whatever, and my eye will catch something, and then I'll grab the camera and walk over to it and take a picture. If I was more organized, I'd have a tripod out there and really make a concerted effort. But I got a pretty steady hand. There you go. There's a turkey tail for you.
Yeah.
And he's doing his mating dance, and that one's pretty recent. I think I took that last spring, not this last spring, but the one before it. So it's about a year old. And not the underbrush hasn't grown out yet, so it's pretty early in the spring. And but there's the cycle of life. There's some dude puffing up his tail and looking sharp and trying to impress the ladies, and hopefully he'll be successful.
It's another beautiful photograph. The foreground, the leaves, the color on the leaves. I've been creating a garden and looking at leaves, more utilitarian. So to see the color of these leaves against this turkey tail on a turkey.
Yeah.
And then to look at the mushrooms before. Healing is an art of being in tune with nature, and I think that's your theme with the 5G, to try to instill a frequency in ourselves so that we can achieve the healing that we want, and we're not, fighting with town officials and all that.
I'm far more sinister-minded than that. I think they're infecting our consciousness with frequencies to prohibit us from appreciating the beauty that's around us. This is if they can get everybody's noses into a laptop or a iPhone or a smartphone or a iPad or whatever it is, that removes you from actually having the direct experience. So you're having this controlled experience, or a contained experience. Yeah, let's keep going with the pictures here. Okay, now I think that's our same fellow. I was trying, turkeys, like the bear, they're really not keen on having some guy walk up to them. So I was trying to get closer, which I did. You can see that the foreground is a little closer, and the focus is pretty good, but he was moving around. So that was the problem there. And I was trying to get a picture of his head, because I think I do have a picture of a turkey with his head, and you can see all of the colors. Yeah, you can sort of see the colors a little bit on his head, but not yet. Yeah. I really wanted to catch him. Okay, that one's on its side. We can just keep going past it because I have more of it. There you go. Okay, so that's the front of my tent. Now, earlier you saw the from the back where you just saw that big, lump of snow, and there's one of those old apple trees and some of my teepee frames up in the yard there. But there's that blanket of snow. It just covers everything. The scale of this, you might think, looking at it, you think, oh, it's a little igloo, but the scale of it is, that's a big tent, folks. It's 50-foot square at the base, 30 feet by 50 feet at the base, and then it goes all the way up to about 18 and a half, 19 feet high at the peak. And that is a chimney. There's a wood stove in there, and there's my door. Through that hole, that hobbit hole in there, that's what I was getting in and out of, is a door that I hung through, a frame that I made. And there's a nice, long view of it. That was after a big snow. Yeah. Okay. Now, this is a real greedy little fellow. These guys, these are the uh, blue jays. They're noisy. They're gregarious. They pick on the other birds. They look at. I love this photograph because look at his mouth. He's got
Full.
so much bread or popcorn, whatever it is I put out for breakfast that day. He's like a chipmunk. You know, his beak is jammed full, but he's also got his cheeks full too. He was hilarious, and this was his personality. Not all of the blue jays were like that. A lot of the blue jays, they would come in, they'd grab it, they'd fly away, and they'd eat it up in the tree and drop a whole bunch, and then come back and get more. This guy was fighting them off with his beak full like that. That's why you don't see anybody else with him. He was just look at how plump he is too. He's just a little piglet there. All right, and can move along to the next one. See now.
These were eating one at a time. Huh?
These guys are happy to get along with each other and yeah, you know. And so the blue jays, all right, I don't know if that's a siskin or a nuthatch. I don't know my birds well enough, but he's got a pointy beak, and he's got that band around his neck, and he's like, come on, no, come on, give me a break here. I want some. You know, but this is a mixed flock. You know, the little birdies that would come to my little feeding station. The blue jays didn't integrate with the mixed flock so much. There's a nice action shot for you there. Yeah, look at that. He's just coming in for a landing. And look at his beak. Isn't that hilarious? I get such a kick out of that. That's the one.
That's greedy beak.
The one on the right. His beak is just full. Yeah. And he's standing his ground. He's like, "No, you're not. You know, this is mine. You know,
my bandwidth."
Yeah, and yeah, I can keep going. They'll come back. So there's another view of the teepee frames in the snow, and I like how it's too bad that one's on its side. Go ahead. That's my door. I gotta turn some of these over. There you go. And that's some of my wood for building that I have stacked in the backyard there. This, you know, when I first, there you go, that's a good shot. Now you can see the door, and that's smoke coming out of the chimney, even though it's obstructed by the apple tree. And I went through 5 winters in that space.
That's not where you took me to see the orgone energy device.
No, you went past it though.
Oh.
You went past the site.
Okay.
And that is the door after a 20 below zero night. And those are the ice crystal patterns on the glass.
Beautiful.
I'm up, now you got to remember, I'm up in my bed on the 2nd floor, and it's warm and toasty up there because heat rises. But when you get about 8 feet from the floor, that's where it freezes. So, you know, there's no insulation. It's just a tent. The only insulation is the snow. And when the snow was all over it, why, it was just fabulous. Go back to that pattern again. Let's pick that one. That's a good one. All right, let's talk about that. You know, what does that remind you of?
Ferns.
Ferns. So you're seeing a floral pattern in the memory of the ice. Go back another one. See, these are all different. They're all somewhat different from each other in the way that the ice grows.
I want to dissolve you. Is that okay?
What's that?
Can I dissolve you?
Sure. All right, look at that. That's kind of weird. It's cool. So you know, nature repeating a pattern again. So if you see me looking to the side, that's because I'm looking to see what she's got going on there on the monitor.
Here, I won't do that.
No, that's all right.
Okay.
So there's this quality of water having memory and intelligence. And there's a book that I recommend everybody get called The Hidden Messages of Water by Dr. Emoto. He's a Japanese scientist who took fabulous microscopic photographs of ice crystals of all different kinds of water.
Can I say something about Emoto? I was in India when somebody asked if my 501c3 would sponsor him, because they were a little bit concerned about their 501c3. They thought it was a little out there, but I thought it was beautiful what he was doing.
Well,
want to tell people.
That's why I bring him up.
Yeah.
It's really very evocative photography for one thing, but for another thing, it shows the intelligence of water. So here now this one almost looks like on the right like an oak leaf. You know, you can see something like a fern pattern in there, but it also has different expressions. We'll keep
It's
going.
like it seals in the frequencies, or it gives what sound is. It makes it visual. What do you
Yes.
think? It's a
Yeah.
frequency of water, and it's a beautiful frequency.
And that's another one. That one almost looks like heather growing in the garden. It's another
Yeah.
kind of plant. So there's each window frame had a different pattern. Isn't that neat? I mean, I get the biggest kick out of that.
So much nicer than big screen TVs, huh?
Yeah.
Because it's
Now that's
it's
another one.
living.
That one looks a little more like less ferny,
Yeah.
more like oak leaves. And there's the car, and there's the mushroom next to the car.
See, there's another.
So there's that similar pattern that we just
Right.
saw in the ice being expressed in this yet again another variety of fungi.
Right.
And those gills, like gills on a fish, right?
Yeah.
Patterns repeat themselves.
Yes.
And all right, now yeah, that's good. Let's go ahead. And this is Cooper Lake at the bottom there, and and it is at the bottom of Mount Tobias. And a lot of the photography that you just saw was, if you go to the right side of the lake and then straight up, so that you're not at the very peak, but you're sort of on the shoulder of the peak, that's where all that photography was taken. That's where the camp is. And those are the big mountains surrounding the Ashokan Reservoir in the background. And this, I'm trying to think if this could be from one of the shoulders of Mount Tobias, and I can't remember where this is because there's no defining anything there, which is kind of neat, folks. Look at how these mountains, these hills, and valleys and trees are. You don't see any houses. This is our neighborhood. This is just walking distance, and this is.
In other words, you're saying this is the great majority of the planet on which we live.
It is.
It's mostly open space.
Much of it is unexplored even, well, here's something to really think about, people, is that last photograph. Those hills that we were just looking at 100 years ago didn't have a tree on them. They were barren, denuded.
Really?
And all of that was for building materials and fuel.
This?
Yes, there wasn't a tree there. That forest, the forest that we're living in today in Woodstock and surrounds in the Catskills is 100 years old.
Wow.
Much of it is 100 years old or even less. If you go back to 1850, there wasn't a tree to be found. There were like some trees here and there, but all these forests were logged out, seriously logged out, especially in Connecticut where they had the iron industry going on.
Where did all the wood go?
They burned it, or they built
burned it.
houses in
That's
New
why
York
they call
City.
it Woodstock. We were talking about why the name Woodstock.
Yeah, well, this is where the
Stock
stock
of
of wood was. There were a lot of mills up here. Look at the green.
Yeah.
Look at that green in the
Look at that
foreground from the
sky.
sunlight.
Do you approve of that sky? They look like puffy clouds.
Now that's the Hudson River, and that's our view from.
No
Yeah, I think that could be the view from either Overlook Mountain or Mount Tobias. I'm not sure which.
How about the health of the clouds on the chemtrail issue?
Well, those look pretty crappy to me.
Oh, really? I thought they
Those are some pretty fuzzy looking. I call
But they're
them.
making heroic efforts to get back into.
Well,
the
no,
shape. They always
they're
are.
actually they eat the chemtrails. The clouds are living things. Part of this dissertation is all of the living qualities of our environment. I should sit properly. All right, so Yeah, let's just keep going through. We've already eaten 42 minutes of our time in this 1 hour show. So
Oh, I see the clouds here better. Yeah. I
yeah,
see they're too wispy.
they've all been inoculated. There's very few natural clouds, and what happens is the cirrus clouds eat the chemtrails, and then they become cumulus-like clouds, and then as the materials get broken up, they become fuzzy. And then the cirrus clouds, I've literally seen them extract themselves from the fuzziness and turn into cirrus clouds again.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're a very unique family of clouds. I just love the quality of how the trees from this vantage point almost look like fungi. You know, they start to look like, you know, like moss. You know.
That's right. It's beautiful.
And the trees are actually, you know, relatives of the moss. The mosses became, well, I don't know that. I'm making that up. They are analogous to each other, but
look at the rocks.
But for difference in size and scale. You know, this is from the fire tower on Overlook. I can see the little.
I want to share this with my friends in Cyprus because it's so beautiful on the island of Cyprus with the rocks and the different landscape. But
yeah.
The feeling of appreciation for where you live.
And that's the Hudson River, stretching for miles and miles. Flat, folks. There's your horizon. Looks pretty flat to me.
Yeah.
Just saying. You can keep moving here. I think this is a beautiful picture, and you can see the reflection of the glass from the fire tower. So this is looking north from our fire tower on top of Overlook Mountain, and you know, that's an escarpment. That is what's left of a delta. And you see this sort of flatness of that one mountain dead ahead. You know, the geologists that were giving us dissertations over at the Shokin Center when I worked there as an outdoor educator was saying that the Catskill region is a huge delta plain that has eroded away. You know, with what's our peak mountain? I think. I don't
know.
I think 4,000 feet it peaks out in the Catskills, and it's 3,600 feet perhaps. But anyway, think about this. You know, that's from sea level, 3,000, 4,000 feet is sediment, right? That fossilized into shale and then eroded into mountains. All of these valleys are river channels, and the mountains were where the Berkshire Hills are today. These little nubs were once bigger than the Himalayan mountains.
Wow.
That over the period of millions of years, the floodplain was what is today the Catskills.
Wow.
You have a thought?
No, I just like the look of these clouds. What do you think?
Well, they're doing, you know, they're doing their cloud stuff.
Is this the watchtower that Bob Dylan sings about all along?
I don't know if it's the watchtower, but it's
fire.
they call it the, well, it is a watchtower. It's the fire. They call it the fire tower. You know,
The
'cause
idea is to look for forest
that's how
fires.
the old days there would be somebody positioned up there to scan the
Yeah.
land to see what was burning. Forest fire,
Yeah,
you know.
Right.
That's another view. I think that's looking east. I think. I'm not sure. Northeast, I think. And I just love how the velvetyness of all the trees. You know, it just looks like some kind of furry covering over the hills. And you can see quite far. And that's looking east southeast to the Hudson River. And that's from being inside the.
Oops.
Yeah. Oops. That's inside the fire tower. You can kind of get a feeling, and you're up there, folks. That's high up there. I mean, the tower goes up. You got to climb up many lengths of stairs to get into that box, which is wiggly in the wind, and that's kind of scary, but it's fun to be up there. All right, now this is also at the top of Overlook, and I took this crag, and I love the way you can see the sediments. All right, so here we are at 3,000 feet, and you can see the striations in the rock, and actually how the rock has separated from itself, kind of like continental drift. You can see how they fit together, you know. And I just love how, you know, each of these layers was set down, you know, on the bottom of this river delta. The bottom of the river delta is now the top of our mountain. And that's the great cycle, you know, it's the scale of that kind of a cycle over millions of years, you know, kind of is very humbling to think, you know, that this operation, Planet Earth, has been in operation for quite some time. And we in our short little lives, we think we're so important in the scale of things, and maybe we are. That's a good question. And if we are important, maybe we should be doing something about how we take care of each other. And and that's the thing that really gets me about nature. You can scroll through a couple more.
I just want to say one thing on this. I love the depth of field at the top right. That part of the picture, it's a little bit closer on the depth of field, so it's not as in focus as the part on the right. And and it's just such a soft way to talk about the shift. Yeah, I always marvel at how powerful still photography is compared to a video. You know, I had stopped doing photography because my eyesight wasn't as good as when I was young. I was a photography major.
Yeah.
And then when the new cameras came in with video, I could automatically focus.
Yes.
But then you lose the chance to control. This is really a beautiful photograph.
I think the nature of my photography is, you know, you have an eye, you know, and I like to frame my photographs by what looks aesthetically pleasing to me. So if I see something aesthetically pleasing, then I snap a picture of it and hope that it comes out. That's my brand of photography. Like this one here, you know, these are just some asters, which are in the sunflower family.
Sunflowers, huh?
Right, and I just, yeah, I was just taken by these little flowers. And all right, now here we're getting into the ruins up at Overlook, and the story goes that Stanley Kubrick's movie was inspired by this ruin in his famous movie The Shining. And I like this ruin because the integrity of the concrete work here that was done in 1890s through 1920 is still standing. And if I had my druthers and I could afford to do it, I would build off of it today. I'd clean it up and build it. I'd like to use it as a performance set. It would be a wonderful place to do.
Is it even available for that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you want to go and hike up there and lug up a bunch of stuff and do a performance, nobody's going to stop you. It's a public space.
This is a public space?
Yeah, it's a public space. Anybody can.
Because it's in a public park?
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's a historic.
Why was it ever abandoned?
It was abandoned because it failed, from probably being built on an Indian burial ground. Who knows? I mean, it had a lot of bad luck, a couple of fires. It did have a short heyday, and people would get up there with trolleys and trains and horse and mule and all kinds of things. But the location of it was prohibitive in a big way.
But the view was so stunning. That's why they exerted themselves to do it?
Yes. And so I was asking, why is this concrete so good? And the answer I got from a few people is, made with the best concrete in the world, which came from Rosendale.
Yeah, I heard that.
And Rosendale's limestone that they crush into cement mix is what made Rosendale a destination. Uh-huh. And I did not know that. Yeah, let's move on to these flowers. These are some.
That's what was supposed to make
New York City great. This one I tried really hard to focus on this flower, and the reason I'm including it is, it's a little fuzzy, but look at the colors. I mean, this is just, to me, a stunning example of geometry. Look, you got 5. Fibonacci. Yeah, you got the 5 going on there, and that is just such. the insects see that glow. And that's what impresses me about this picture, is you can really get a sense of that morning glory flower just glowing, and the insects that are attracted to this kind of thing see even more detail and more color and more excitement. But anyway, I'm just taken by how these colors in nature just
invite you to another dimension, huh?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I do oil paint from time to time. I used to do it a lot. Now I don't do it at all. Hopefully I'll get back to it.
It looks like
I just admire the form. I mean, and the edge around that purple blue against the green and the yellow, to me is just, I just have to love that. Keep going. Some black-eyed Susans, little family of flowers there, and these are our neighbors. This is who we share the world with, and they all have a purpose. There's those guys again. Yeah, let's go back to them. I just got the biggest kick, and again, see, that shape to me is very feminine. And oh, look at that. All right, so I know that's an Amanita, and if it was Amanita muscaria, it would be red. This is a relative. It's a relative of the Amanita muscaria, and this one is very, very poisonous, and you should not try eating it for any reason. But to me, it just shows this, very kind of male, stately energy, and just the sort of bizarreness of it. Almost looks like a space creature or something, or a spacecraft. Has this, really kind of, there's our barred owl. Now this next sequence here is really good, because you'll get to see he's looking at me through my window, and I got 3 minutes left, so we'll just share a moment. And there he is working on that fat, which is very rare, and he's looking back at me, but he's not going away. He's not letting go. He's really an agile creature, and I just love the patterning of his feathers. Yeah. It's just
George Conant food pantry.
Yeah, right. And but the sheer loveliness of his expression in his face. I mean, he's just so intelligent and so knowing. I guess that's why they called him the wise old owl. And like I said, he was not afraid. I mean, he just stayed right with us. And there's a box turtle that's up on the same area, up on Mount Tobias, and they're pretty rare. And it's this is reason why we want to protect our environments around here, is because we do have these rare species, like this rattlesnake, largest rattlesnake in the north, rattlesnake den in the northeast. Is right up there on Mount Tobias, and I live with the rattlesnakes too. And this one is particularly friendly. It leaves me, it sheds its skin on my cabin and leaves it for me.
Means it likes you.
He's done it twice, and I had to step over him, as I shared in one show.
He looks kind of fat there.
Yeah, must have eaten something. He keeps the rodent population down. He's between 4 and 6 feet long. And if you take a look at that rattle, you can almost count all the rattle sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I'm seeing there's probably as many as 12 to 15 sections there. That's not a young snake.
Every year they do that? So
I don't know. I don't know if they grow a new section every year or what.
This is what you shared the story with Ventuzzi about.
Yes, that's the snake. And that's up on Overlook, or no, that's in my yard. And those are the mountain laurels. Those are those mountain. They're wild. They don't really have much of a fragrance. There's our owl again. We can just keep going. And that's I was hoping we'd get to these guys. And there's the girls, and he's like leaving me, going, this is hard work. Okay, and there's our deer people have to be represented in this show. And this is a really great one. You can see the color on his head a little bit, but he's challenging himself in the reflection of a car. And I just got the biggest kick out of that. And he's
Yeah.
like, go, let's duke it out. These girls are mine. We'll just keep going. And gotta love those mountain laurels. And there's a nice winter scene.
Aw.
And here's a little close up of a not a chickadee. Not sure what that is. That's up in the Adirondacks. Nice couple 100-foot high waterfall.